Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Hello. Welcome to this week's episode. As stated last week, we will be talking about dating as a fat person. And before we get into it, I would also like to, just add a little tidbit to last week's situation in the sense that I think that plus size men experience the same thing. Chunky, funky, thick men experience the same problems in terms of not having as many options to express themselves. But I do think in terms of sizing, they do have more options. I see men, thicker than me, wearing nice, loose, baggy sweatpants and nice, loose, baggy t-shirts. And I'm just like, where are they finding these things? Because I would love a t-shirt that was baggy. So I do think that in terms of the fashion industry, there is a lot more room and understanding that men are larger and can come in larger sizes, whereas there is an expectation or a pressure for women to remain petite and small and slender. And that the metric of desirability is different for men, and therefore it affords them more options. But when it comes to presenting oneself as stylish or fashionable or, having a personality or, being extroverted and actually caring about one's appearance, I think that's where we are treated the same, where those options aren't afforded to both male and female and everyone in between. That, there's this expectation, I guess, and understanding, or this assumption that, regardless of what you identify as or what you are, that once, if you're fat, that you have no desire to be fashionable or to express yourself in a very unique way or assertively, right? You should just be happy that you found something in your size. It'll be boring, it'll be drab, because no one cares about designing something nice for fat people, because the assumption is that fat people don't even care about themselves, right? So yeah, I just wanted to top up on that because of conversations that I had over the week as I was interrogating my own fashion sense, and the fact that I do, toggle between representing myself in a really feminine way, and also moving towards, a very masculine presenting style, because I do lean into my masculinity quite often. And I find that when I am looking for things on the more masculine side, that I do have more options. Because I'll go into the men's section, specifically, and I'll go to like these stores like Big and Tall that are oftentimes catered towards men, and I'll find options there. So yeah, that's that on that. Let's get into today's situation, today's steez. So, like I said, we'll be talking about dating. And you know what? I just want to have this disclaimer now because I think it's important that I clarify that this is definitely from my perspective, right? This is all just my opinion, and that I exist at the sort of intersection of many identities, and therefore there could be a variety of things that contribute to my experience of the world, how other people perceive me, and what I could be attributing to my fatness could be because of my blackness, could be because of my height, could be because, of a variety of things, right? My voice, my accent, how I move through this earth, so on and so forth. But for the purposes of this podcast, I am mostly going to focus on things that I have seen as commonalities between like myself and other friends of mine who are also yuck, all thickums. um, and also, sprinkled in with a bit of my own experiences. But I will try. I do think that I don't think any of my experiences are unique, right? Like just specific to me. I think across the board, everybody has insecurities. Those insecurities inform how they interact with other people. And those insecurities will then, color how they see the world, and what information they process and in what manner. And I think that's where we can all relate, right? And this is why I feel the need maybe to share my experiences so that maybe whoever's listening might sort of realize that they too are doing the same thing, and it could be based in insecurity or based, in something else. Or maybe just for whoever's listening to feel less alone in their dating journey, because it low-key sucks for everyone. I'm sure even people who exist with pretty privilege have, problems of their own, right? Maybe never really being sure if someone is really into them, or they just like, having the trophy, on their arm, and the aesthetics of having someone who looks like them with them. You know what I mean? So everybody has problems, and I'm not saying that, my experiences are unique. Okay, so disclaimers aside, let's get into this because wow. Now, I'm going to start off by saying that first of all, the streets are cold. The streets are cold, and they're cold for everyone. But come winter time, come winter time, you're looking for the baddies like me. You know what I mean? Winter's my season. Winter's when everybody's looking for a thick bitch to cuddle up with. You know what I mean? A little portable heater, a little sentient blanket. But yeah, and it is kind of a weird thing, and I never really noticed it in the beginning, and initially would sort of take it as a joke when people would, mention it in passing. But as I got older, I was just like, yep. You know what I mean? When people just, I don't know what it is. And yes. So I'm just going to start off with that. Winter. As a big bitch, dating, for whatever reason, winter is the season. And I think it's maybe because it's coat season and everybody's layering up, so everyone looks a little poofy. You know what I mean? So we kind of blend in a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe it is because, you get those people who are hobosexuals. People who, sleep around to have a warm place to stay. People who date around to get a free meal. Those type people. And maybe winter is the hardest time, so they decide, beggars can't be choosers in this season. I don't know, but it is a trend that I noticed, and it's weird. It's weird, low-key, because I'm cute all year round. You know what I mean? Although cuddles do suck in summer because it's all hot and sweaty and clammy, and I low-key hate it. So winter is perfect cuddle weather. I get it, but also no. I don't want to be a seasonal bae. I want to be an evergreen. Shout out to Yeba, that song. Ugh, every time it plays, I am singing it at the top of my lungs, and I don't know how to sing. When I sing, dogs start barking, children start crying, low-key only dolphins can hear me. But Evergreen by Yeba, oh, bangs. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So yes, being seasonal or whatever, it low-key sucks. It sucks because, again, you don't know whether the person is with you just because they want cuddles, just because it's all comfy and stuff. You never really know. Then you get the people with the fetishes. You know what I mean? And again, if you have toes, there are people with fetishes, with your toes. Unfortunately, fortunately for people with toes, you can wear, closed shoes or boots or tackies, and no one can really know what your toes look like. And if your toes are the type of toes that do it for them, some people like turtle toes. Some people like the baby snatcher toes. Some people like, the toes that are throwing the gang signs. We don't know. We don't know what they're into, and they don't know what kind of toes you're dealing with. So you're kind of left alone in that regard. You know what I mean? Or maybe they'll politely sort of request and inquire, or have to find other things that are appealing about you in order to even give them a reason to approach you. Anyway, well, when it comes to being a big bitch, you're big on sight. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty hard to hide, which makes it easy for people with a fat fetish to spot you out. The number of times I've been on the apps or even in the streets where people are just like, oh, please sit on my chest. Oh, I just want to watch you eat. The feeders and eaters are the worst because, one, sometimes they're low-key, they're not overt with it. And I really wish people were more open about their fetishes and just like, hey, I love watching people eat and watching them gain weight. Like, I love that shit. Instead, they'll come with this angle of like, don't worry, babes, you don't have to, limit yourself with me. You're free to eat whatever you want. Like, don't worry about that, and they seem to be really pro, living your best life. And you're just like, wow, I really got a real one, someone who really supports me. And then you're watching them get like a bit of a chub every time you take a bite of a sandwich, and you're just like, what the hell? Like, what's going on here? What is going on? And then eventually the cat's out the bag and they tell you like, hey, don't yuck my yum, but I've noticed you put on a kg or two, and I like it. So yeah, you get the chubby chases and the feeders, and it gets really awkward, especially because people are not honest about what they really want. And I think that is a common problem across the board, regardless of who you are. We all struggle with being honest about what we really want, I think even as a fat person, right, as much as we want to, point at other people and say that they're the ones who are being deceptive and they're the problem, I think even with us, I know early on, because I felt like and I believed that I wasn't attractive, that I wasn't beautiful, and therefore wasn't lovable, you become sort of hypersexualized really quickly, and you feel like the only thing you have to offer is sex, and sex becomes this medium for you to sort of get even just the tiniest bit of affection and intimacy, and you're kind of touch starved and you just want someone to look at you and make you feel desirable, right? But not in that way. You don't want to be sexually desirable. You just want to be desired as a human being. But you kind of go into it with this assumption that you will never be desirable as a person. No one will ever just love you fully for who you are in this, in this body. So you just offer sex, right? Because who's going to say no to sex? And that's that, right? And you go into dating apps and you don't say that what you actually want is a committed, loving relationship because you're afraid of scaring away, people who don't want that. What if you never find that and you decide that you would rather have a little bit of something than nothing, right? Even though that little bit of something makes you feel like nothing, right? And just tears apart your self-esteem. The little self-esteem that you had left, that little something rips it all up, and you offer yourself, pieces of yourself, the desirable pieces of yourself, the socially acceptable pieces of yourself at the altar of other people's desires, other people's lust. And you're like, at least these are the part of me that will be accepted, and you keep the rest of you hidden, right? You deny yourself the opportunity to be loved in your entirety. And that is where we deceive others as well, because then we enter into these, situationships. You have these fuck buddies, and you tell yourself you're okay with it, but you're not. Deep down you want more. And as the urge bubbles up in your chest and, threatens to come out and make itself known, you shove it back down and you say, no one wants you. No one will ever give you more. You don't deserve more. And I think that the journey of dating is one that has more to do with the self than it has to do with other people, if we're being honest, because people are going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do what they think is best for them. They're going to do what makes sense for them. They're just going to do whatever, and it's up to you to decide whether you're going to allow that into your life or not, right? It's up to you to decide whether the juice is worth the squeeze in this regard. And oftentimes when you are operating from a place of just having a low self-esteem, you never even consider the fact that you too have the option to choose, because you sit around waiting to be chosen. You sit around, trying to hide the parts of you that are quote unquote unacceptable, and only sort of, walking into the world tits first or ass first or funny personality first, because those are the things that other people have said that they've liked about you. So those are the things that you're going to keep reproducing or keep, putting the spotlight on, in the hopes that it will attract more people and you will get this attention that you crave. But it never satisfies you, right? It never satiates that need, because you're not being authentic. You're not being your whole self. That the thing that's being applauded is just one small part of you, and everything else is still left to start. So even in this world of dating, you consider your self-esteem, you consider what you've been told about love, what you believe about love, right? And that also comes from how you grew up, your first experiences of love and how it was introduced to you. Did you grow up in a household where love was conditional? Did you grow up in a household where you had to beg for love, where you had to fabricate it in your mind, play detective and assume that certain actions, were out of love or whatever, because no one ever overtly said that they loved you. No one ever came up to you and showered you with love. So you tell yourself that their absence is love, right? That maybe you're just not good enough, that you're not worth the effort it takes to spend time with you. All those little things, depending on how you grew up, that then becomes the love that you are familiar with. That then becomes what informs your comfort level when it comes to affection. And it takes a really long time to, one, become aware of what your love map is, right? Because that's, I think, what it's called, right? The love map. When you can sort of see how you are recreating your childhood through these romantic relationships, be it, you're trying to correct something in your childhood, like if you have a tendency of dating people that you think you can save, right? That maybe there was a parent that you thought that if you were good enough, if you were, a good girl and behaved, that maybe they would change, right? That it just required you to just do a little bit more and they would love you. And you recreate that childhood pain. If your parents were violent or emotionally abusive or verbally abusive, you will then find yourself gravitating towards people who do the same thing. It hurts. but you don't even know that you're going for those people, and you don't even know why, right? It sort of comes to you by surprise. Like, why am I always attracting these type of guys? No, you're attracting this. You attract everyone, right? You as a person, you are attractive. And there's a wide variety of people that are attracted to you, but you choose these people because there's something that feels like home there, right? You just feel so connected. There's this thing, right? This intangible thing that you just like, I'm just so drawn to them. I feel so comfortable there. And it's because they feel like home. And sometimes you have to be honest with the fact that home wasn't a good place. So maybe you should run away from people who feel like home, because they're not a good place either. They're not good people for you. You know what I mean? But that means having to admit certain things about your childhood, having to admit certain things about your parents that are maybe a little difficult. You know, things that you don't want to have to say or believe about people that you love very much. And the thing is, you can say that, like, listen, I love my parents, but they failed me. They didn't have the tools necessary to equip me for life. They were not affectionate enough. They didn't give me the love and affection that I needed. And therefore, they failed me in these areas. But now that I'm aware of, these childhood needs that need to be, met, I can meet them myself. And the danger then becomes when we try to look for our partners to do that for us, right? Because there's also the flip side of then being aware of the love and affection that you needed as a child and somehow expecting your partner to fill those gaps for you. And I think I found myself in, those precarious situations in the past where, I was dating someone who I thought was completely out of my league. And I was merely enthralled with the idea that this person had chosen me, right? And I never really considered whether I even liked them. But they wanted to be with me. They showed just the slightest bit of interest, and I was titivated, all giddy and excited, and they said they wanted us to be together. I said yes without even checking in with myself, because wow, wow. Someone as, handsome and popular as him, he wants to be with me? What? Really? Ah? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Finally, I'll be beautiful by association, that his little compliments and stuff, they just felt so good. Like, oh, how amazing is that this person, who's so gorgeous, who probably has women, throwing themselves at him, he chose me. Wow. This must mean something. This must mean that I'm beautiful. And yeah, I lived for every little compliment. Oh, I lapped it up like it was my last meal on earth. Just every little thing. Oh, wow. Your bag looks nice. Wow. You combed your hair nicely today. Oh. It was amazing. And then I slowly realized that we'd never hang out in public. And it slowly, oh Jesus, I'm embarrassed to admit how slow it was, but it slowly dawned on me that I was his dirty little secret. I was so focused on being liked by him that I didn't even realize that he didn't actually like me. You know what I mean? Like, he was just maybe just giving me attention, but his attention was a means to an end. And the end was that he, wanted to clap cheeks. that he may have found me sexually appealing, but that was the extent of my appeal to him. He was not interested in me as a person. And even in my naivety, I asked, hey, why don't we hang out? Like, why don't we go out, do things? You're always telling me about, these cool parties with your friends, da-da-da, da-da-da. Like, why don't we go together? Why don't we ever go on dates? And yeah, he just blatantly to my face said, why would I want to be seen in public with you? Imagine. Ugh. And like, he laughed a little, like, before saying it. Like, my question was absolutely ridiculous. His question was rhetorical. His reply was rhetorical because he was operating off of the assumption that I knew, you know what I mean? What he was talking about, that it was obvious. That, like, bish, you're ugly, okay? I mean, come on. Don't you know this? You're ugly. Why would anyone want to be seen in public with you? You bring down the group average. And the thing is, I did think that I was, the ugliest thing to roam the earth. I was so grateful for his time and attention because I felt I was undeserving of it, that someone like him, didn't need to be dealing with people like me. So that whole relationship, if I even want to call it a relationship, that whole situation was driven by my insecurities. I didn't see myself. I didn't see the value in myself. And I was expecting other people to see that value. I was expecting other people to bring up my value instead of me believing in myself and, seeing the true value of myself and bringing up my own value and only interacting with people who deserved to have my energy, to have my time and attention. Once I started seeing myself as someone valuable, it became a lot easier to say no to people and to protect my energy. But even then, I still see remnants of that girl who's just happy to be chosen. When I think about how long it took, even in my quote unquote dating life, to be with someone who was willing to take me out on dates. Like, I was never taken out on dates. I was always just, the one doing the labor, the one pushing the relationship. And it felt like I was the one chasing these people. That they happened to just show passing, they might have just had a passing fascination. And here I am now milking it for everything that it's got. I'm here, I'm like, okay, let's go here, let's do this, I'll pay, don't worry. And where did that get me? Because at the end of the day, it didn't change the fact that these people weren't serious about me. And how could they be? Because I wasn't serious about myself either. I wasn't treating myself in a manner that, resembled any form of, like, self-respect, or just, like, seeing myself for who I really am. I've dated people who saw exactly how amazing I was and thought that they could milk it for themselves. Because I didn't see how amazing I was. And of late, I have decided that I don't want to date people who will maybe fill in the gaps of my own self-love. I want to love myself first. I want to belong to myself first. I do not want to give myself away to anyone. I want to be in full possession of myself. And I want to be madly in love with myself. And then whoever I date, I just want them to participate in the love that I already give to myself, if that makes sense. That I will not feel so desperate to be with someone because I will not experience love outside of them. I will not experience affection or care outside of these other people because I fail to give those things to myself. And yes, especially when we're talking about like Amy Key, where there is this, this, what can I say, this tug of war between these two ideas, right? Of, you know, fixing yourself and loving yourself, and love will find you there, right? And also healing through love and affection and through relationships, that once you date, and that being with someone can be a really healing experience. And I agree to some extent that if you find the right partner, they can hold your hand while you heal through some really hectic things. They can also show you different ways of showing yourself compassion. They can support you through your own journey of self care and self love. But I think at the end of the day, where these two ideas meet, right? The idea of fixing yourself first before going into the dating pool, or you finding healing in the dating pool. I think the middle ground between the two is that you have to want to heal. You have to want it for yourself. That you have to be the driver of this mission for your healing and your self-love and all of these things. And that as you become more and more enlightened, that sometimes it does mean ending certain relationships, even if it comes to a point where you realize that the romantic relationship that you're in isn't serving you in the way that it should. That you then find the courage to leave, find the courage to stand up for yourself, and choose yourself every time. I think the one thing that I am grateful for in terms of my dating journey is that I've never gotten to a point where I have chosen the other person over myself after realizing what was happening. Definitely when I, was blind to it all and confused and didn't know what I was doing, yeah, I went, deep down some really dark rabbit holes. But once I realized what was happening, once, the truth was revealed to me in whatever way, I never turned away from it and chose to still, drink the Kool-Aid. I left. I left every time, and I'm grateful for that. But I also know that leaving isn't as easy, as it's said, that you can't just pack your things and go sometimes. Because sometimes those realizations happen too late, where your lives are so intertwined with each other that, the dissolution of this life is, is going to leave you bare. And what I would say, you know, in terms of dating is always find a way to have your own independence in the relationship. Don't let the relationship consume your whole identity. Don't be with someone who doesn't allow you to have friends, right? Where they make their jealousy your problem. Stay connected to your people, because those are the things that leave you open to abuse, right? When there's an imbalance in the power dynamics of your relationship, that's where things, get awkward. If, they're convincing you to be a housewife, make sure that you have enough saved up so that should you decide to leave, you have a nest egg where you can start your life again. And if you don't, then don't agree to be a housewife just yet, and explain to them why. And if they're not supportive of you having your own little nest egg for your own peace of mind and security, then maybe this is not the right person for you, But stay connected to the people that love you. Stay connected to the people that care about you, who want the best for you. Make sure that you have a network of care outside of the relationship. Yes, the relationship might be one of the most important relationships in your life at the time, but it doesn't mean that you negate the other relationships in your life, because those relationships matter too. Those relationships will be the ones that get you through the hard times. I know that my friendships have been, really helpful in my relationships when I've been really avoidant, when I've met good people who have offered me love in ways that I never knew I could ever have. And I was so quick to run away from those people and say that there was something wrong with them because I didn't believe that I was worthy and deserving of such love. So I dismissed them and I ran away from them. But I had friends who held me accountable. I had friends who were like, girl, there's nothing wrong with what this person is doing. They're not weird. You're weird. You're the weird one for being so uncomfortable with someone being that affectionate with you. You're the weird one for, finding it strange that someone doesn't just want sex from you, that they actually want to talk to you. You're the weird one. And sometimes, like I said before, in terms of building tolerance, sometimes you are going to have to retrain yourself to learn different forms of affection, to look within yourself and see the type of affection that you crave, even though you're not used to receiving it and it does scare you and it makes you feel uncomfortable. That you know in the back of your mind that you've been craving this affection, that your inner child has always wanted to just be held. Your inner child has always just wanted someone to delight in their existence. And here's somebody doing that, and you're running away because you don't know what it feels like. It's scary to confront, this thing, to satiate this need, right? You're afraid that once, you open the floodgates on this situation, that it might never close. Maybe you're afraid that if you are vulnerable to this person, that they might hurt you, right? That it is a weakness or whatever those fears are. The dating world is a great place for you to build a resilience, to relearn certain things about yourself, to learn new things about yourself, right? To train yourself on how to deal with and experience different things, you know? So yeah, I think dating can be amazing if you allow yourself to open up and be honest about what you want. And the fear of scaring away people who don't want what you want is counterproductive, right? Because you're just setting yourself to be hurt if you allow these people in when they've clearly stated that they don't want what you want, right? And you make things awkward and uncomfortable when then later on you're just like, well, we've been sleeping together for so long, and you start baking them muffins and you're telling them I love you and they're like, oh, you're weird, you know what this is. And painting them to be an asshole when they were clear in the beginning about what they wanted and you just didn't want to listen. You didn't want to believe them. You thought that if you got in, that hopefully you would change their mind, and that's not fair to yourself and to them. So, yeah, that's my little rant on dating. It low-key sucks because finding the right person is a nightmare for everyone. And I think being black, being fat, being, not entirely feminine all the time, all these things kind of work against you, right? Where you exist in this liminal space. And it makes it even harder. But be patient with yourself and continue to love yourself throughout the process while you're still actively seeking. Make space in your life for the people that you want, especially when you've been single for a long time. You tend to fill these little gaps up with friends and hobbies and work and all of that. That when someone does enter into your life, right, and they're willing to love you and they're, happy and all of these wonderful things, that you don't have time for them anymore, right? You haven't created space for the things that you want, and that rule of thumb applies to everything. You know what I mean? Like, you want a better job, you want more success, you need to make space, make room in your life for those things. That's how you manifest, right? You get the wardrobe maybe ready. You take a few courses, start going to free online seminars, networking, whatever. Put yourself in that space, familiarize yourself with the surroundings because this is what you want, right? So why aren't you pursuing it? Why are you just sitting on your hands hoping for it to come knock on your door and greet you? In the same way that with dating, that you do have to start being a little more social, putting yourself out there, but also observe yourself in these relationships and try not to repeat the same mistakes. Learn from your mistakes as you move forward and say, okay, cool, this is a strange one, but I'm gonna try, I'm gonna see what's going on here. Like, why am I being triggered by these things? What does this remind me of? And you keep working on yourself, keep asking yourself these questions, and you keep moving. You keep moving forward, be it in the relationship or leaving the relationship, but you keep moving forward, and you look for the things that you want. Right? You're like, okay, cool. I want hugs. I want someone who's physically affectionate. But right now, I recoil anytime anyone moves close to me. So maybe what I need to do is go to massages, right? Go to a massage therapist and, explain to them, like, listen, I'm a bit awkward about touch and I'm trying to get used to it, more. So could you please be patient with me? Could you please be kind? Because that maybe your future partner might take it as a rejection when they see you, pull your hand away quickly and, recoil at their touch, when honestly you truly want it. You want them to grab and hold you. You're just not used to it and you're scared. So these are little things that you can do on your own to prepare yourself for the things that you want, right? Where you see that there are small blockages, little things that get in the way of you fully experiencing things. These are things that maybe in your downtime or even with your friends that you could ask for support and try and find a way through these things. You don't have to do anything alone. If you have a good community, a support system, that these people will always be more than willing to show up for you and help you, right? But you have to want it for yourself first. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to suck. To try and, engage in a relationship in a healthy manner, to decide that you're not going to be avoidant anymore, you're not going to be an anxious attacher. It requires a lot of self-work, a lot of self-talk. It requires you being honest with your partner, to ask them to support you through this. It requires a lot. And you have to ask yourself if you want it, if you really, really want it, and if you're willing to do the work that it takes to get it. But you also need to be patient and kind with yourself, because it's not going to be perfect the first time around. You're going to be bad at it, low-key. You're going to lash out at your partner and say things that you don't mean. You're going to do something reckless and petty to hurt your partner because they hurt you. You're going to do all of these things. But when you do these things, take ownership, apologize, and try to do better next time. And if your partner, is willing to forgive you and work with you, then you be grateful and move forward, right? Should they decide that they can't take it, right, that they don't have the patience for it, that they've had enough, then we understand and we move forward. Every person in a relationship has the right to leave if they are not happy, and that includes you too. You don't have to just be grateful that they're there and end up taking a whole bunch of shit that you don't want. Because that's the thing when you start taking shit. The first one and the second one, it stinks and it's uncomfortable and whatever, but as the shit starts to pile up, you get nose blind to the smell, and eventually you're covered in shit and you can't tell the difference between you and the shit and your partner. It's all just one thing. So you are well within your rights to speak up for yourself. You're well within your rights to turn around and leave once you've had enough. You don't have to wait for the other person to leave you, because you must just be grateful that they wanted to be with you in the first place. You are amazing. You are beautiful. You are a gift. Anyone who has you in their life should be grateful. There are people whose eyes light up when you walk into a room. You do not deserve to be treated like a second-rate citizen. You do not deserve to be treated like an option, like just, well, if all my other plans fall through, then I guess this one will be a nice backup. You deserve to be the first choice. You deserve for someone to spend their whole week looking forward to seeing you. You deserve to be with someone who buys little trinkets, who plans little activities, who just wants to see you smile, who delights in your existence. You deserve to be with someone who will go to their grave knowing that their life was made better because you were in it. You deserve to be with someone who will promise to look for you in the next life. Anything less than that is bullshit, because you are too amazing, you are too kind, you are too beautiful, you are too everything good for anyone to be taking you for granted. That just won't cut it. It really won't cut it. You have a gorgeous smile. The way that you interact with people, the way that you understand things, the way you express yourself. There's something really, really unique about you, about how you choose to do this life thing. There's something really fucking special about it. And the world is made better because you're in it. And any person who chooses to be your partner should be and must be someone who wants to spend the rest of their lives basking in the glory that is your existence. Anything short of that is bullshit, and you should leave. But you need to learn to recognize your awesomeness first, so that you can recognize when someone is celebrating in it, or if someone is just exploiting it. Anyway, I think that's going to be our homework for the week, to just see how amazing we are without being sort of ignorant to our flaws. We know those flaws. We know exactly what's wrong with ourselves because we focus on those things all the time. We flagellate ourselves endlessly for every little mistake that we make, for every little fuck up. And we fail to give ourselves grace. So, the homework for this week, whether you're in a relationship or you're not in a relationship, reflect on how your love map is affecting your relationships, be it platonic or otherwise. If you don't even know what your love map is, then your homework for this week is to look into what your love map is. Look at how your parents treated you and whether they were forthcoming with love and affection, how they chose to love you, and how those forms of affection are showing up in your day-to-day life now. Another thing to add to the homework is just to see how amazing you are. Not as an individual. I think many of our homeworks have been, very internal, focusing on what's happening inside us. I think that the homework for this week is for you to see the good that you do in other people's lives, the effect that you have, the positive effect that you have on the people around you. Observe yourself with others. See the joy you bring and revel in it. Anyway, that's it for today. I will see you all next week. And next week, it's a bit of a surprise topic. I don't want to spoil it for you, but yeah. I don't know, but then it's going to be in the outro. Do I say? No, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. I will, today's outro, I'll just, talk about some stuff, but next week's episode is going to be a bit of a surprise. Okay, bye. All right. So, like I said, next week's episode is a bit of a surprise, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. But we are trying new things, okay? We're trying new things, so please like, share, and subscribe. I'd like to have a wider reach. I'd like to be more consistent with the socials. I think that's where I struggle the most. I'm low-key proud of myself for getting an episode out every Monday for the past 15 weeks. That is, I mean, if you know me and my struggle with keeping promises to myself, like, wow, you know? So yeah, I do want to do better with the socials. I want to try new things so that we're more inclusive for people, and the different abilities that they have. So please bear with us, but also, I mean, listen to the audio in this outro. It's really unfortunate that, I didn't know about this until now, but the audio is a lot more crisp without having to buy a studio or buy space in a studio or whatever, thanks to my brother's tip. So hopefully this week's episode is the last episode that will have, the sort of echoey audio with, passing cars and all that in the background. So yeah. Thank you again for being so patient, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.